You know, this bike, what's so great about it is not only is it affordable, but the parts and the accessories for it are cheap. So Freya here has all of her own little unique bits and parts that I think make her my own. Hey everybody, so welcome back. I'm really excited because not only am I going to share with you all of the mods and tweaks that I've made to the Himalayan since I've had it last October, but it also means that my trip is finally coming up. So when I bought this bike, my real ultimate goal was to take some long, multi-day and week-long adventure trips up into the mountains of Colorado with it, take it on some fun roads, take it up to trailheads, combine it with crazy backpacking trips or mountaineering trips or high pointing trips, you name it. That was my goal. And so on Sunday this week, I'm going to be finally leaving to go on my first trip. I'm going to head over to the Sangre de Cristos in eastern Colorado, hike some of the 14ers there, and then slowly make my way west back to the San Juans and basically spend 4 or 5 days playing around the San Juans. So that's the plan. But in order to get my bike sort of ready for that, I had to do a lot of things to it. And I basically spent all winter slowly building on the bike, slowly tinkering with it, making adjustments, making modifications, spending a lot of money, not all of it wisely, I will fully admit. But I think I've got it to the point now where I'm mostly there. There's a few additional things that I want to do to the bike, but they can wait. They can wait until next year. They're not urgent. All of the urgent things that I wanted to do, I've done. So I will go through all of that with you guys. But if any of you are out there and you're trying to do like what I did, I had a huge spreadsheet of all these, mods and accessories and all these things that I wanted to get based on all these videos I watched. And without even knowing anything about a lot of these accessories, I was convinced I needed them all, which is a lesson to a lot of you out there is take your time, relax. There's a really good chance that you don't need all the accessories that you think you need. And in my case, I ended up taking a lot of things off because I just didn't like them and they were essentially a waste of money. Thankfully, a lot of those things that I bought and didn't use, I was able to resell on eBay or return or things like that. But I still have several things that I bought for this bike that are literally still sitting in boxes that I'm just not going to use. All right, so with all that said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk around the bike and as briefly as possible, highlight all of the things that I've done to the bike, both accessory and modification wise, to really sort of make it my own. This bike, what's so great about it is not only is it affordable, but the parts and the accessories for it are cheap. So Freya here has all of her own little unique bits and parts that I think make her my own. So what I've done is I saw a video online where someone put little sticky notes basically on everything that they did to their bike, and I thought that was a brilliant idea so that I can basically just walk you guys through and highlight all of the things that we've done to the bike. So I'm going to start in the front here and basically just go through it. So starting with the windshield, I did put on a Hitchcock Motors extended windshield, which is about 6 centimeters higher. It does definitely reduce the buffeting, but it's also still very narrow at the top, so it doesn't eliminate it. And there is another windshield that I found that I talked about in my previous video, which I think I'm gonna buy for next year. So that was the first thing. Second thing, which I also talked about in my last video, was I installed the LED light. I did play around with different bulbs, halogen bulbs, and I ultimately decided to go with the LED light. One thing for any of you out there thinking about doing this upgrade is you do have to splice a wire to get the daytime running light working. And also I had to tilt my housing down as far as it would go. So you have to basically just pop these little caps off, unscrew it, and then just tilt it as far forward as it'll go because it was kind of just projecting too far forward and not enough downward. Ultimately, next year, one of those upgrades that I talked about that's not critical is I'm gonna put some accessory lights on these bars, some LEDs that will help with the lighting. And that's another reason I went with this light is because it draws less wattage than the halogen. This only draws, I believe, 30 watts and 45 watts on low and high respectively, whereas the halogen is 55 and 60. So if I want to put 2 additional accessory lights on, now I have a lot more power to work with without straining the battery. Considering I also have a charger on here and accessory ports, et cetera, et cetera. So a really good argument for putting on a lower draw, power draw LED light. All right, moving on. I went with the Barkbusters handguards, and I'm really glad I did. A lot more expensive, but have saved the bike more than once because they are sturdy, they have 2 points of contact, and they're just, really robust, and I like them. And I don't like the Himalayan ones because they don't connect on the handlebar, and I think they're just kind of flimsy and cheap. So these are bomb-proof. My bike has fallen on them multiple times, and other than a few little dings and scratches on the ends, they've been great. I did go with the double take mirrors. I really vacillated over this for quite some time. I went back and forth, put the old mirrors back on. Honestly, you know, I'm kind of indifferent. They are nice, and I do like that they can sort of move out of the way. If you tip the bike over, they just kind of pivot because they're on the ram mounts. And the mirrors are longer, so you get a little bit more vision out of the mirrors. But honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, if you have a strict budget, I don't think they're absolutely necessary to get right off the bat. Whereas like the Bark Busters would be one of the first things I would get. So that's just my opinion. I mean, they're great, but maybe just not as necessary as I thought they would be. Down here, I've just got a sticky note indicating that I put on the little risers here. I think most people do, just so you can get a little more space above your fender there. I did install the external gas tanks in order to carry some extra fuel. This is what it looks like right here, which I will need on my trip to Colorado because I'm going to be driving across Hopi and Navajo Nation. Not a lot of services for several hundred miles, so I will need those tanks. Let's move on. So we've got the crash bars, the GVs. I think they are phenomenal. Little bit of a job getting them on, but as long as you've got the tools, a standard wrench set, and the patience, it's honestly not too bad. Great tutorial videos online on how to do that, but I really think that these are probably the best bars you can get for the Himalayan. That's just my opinion, but I like the 3 points of contact. They're just really stout. I've already tipped the bike over once onto the crash bars, and the only thing that I damaged on the bike was the gear shifter assembly because it happened to fall right on it, but no damage at all to the engine. The engine guard took most of it. So moving on, we've got, the Royal Enfield oil cap. I have no idea how I acquired that. Somehow they must have swapped it out at the dealership, and you know, it's like a $40 little plug. I never would have paid for it, so I have no idea how that got on there, but I'll take it. It's a freebie. I have this one here just to indicate that I put an Iridium NGK spark plug in, which definitely did improve the firing and just the smoothness of the bike a little bit. I mean, maybe that's all in my head, but I feel like it runs a little bit better now with that. This is just a little guard for the reservoir, SRC Moto. This is to indicate that I put in all the components for my tank bag, and so that's what this little clip here is for. This guy here is just to indicate that I installed a power unit here that basically plugs up to the handlebars into my USB charger, which I'll show you in a minute. I also have a secondary SAE plug right here, which is what I use on my battery tender, but also what I use for the air pump for the tires if I need to. So it's got a little cap here. I can cap it off and just tuck it away, and it works out perfectly. Moving down, this is just to tell you guys I took the rubber pads off the foot pegs. I just didn't really like them. I don't know. They just, if you're going to be doing any off-roading, it doesn't make any sense to keep them on. You get no traction on the grippies. This is the rear master cylinder protector, also SRC Moto. So one of the modifications I made to my Himalayan, which was very custom, as you may notice, my heat shields are black. Here, here, and here. I got this idea because I was looking at the new 2021 Indian model, and I noticed that those are now black, and I loved the look of it. And I was kind of cruising through some Reddit forums or something and found another guy that had painted them. And I loved it so much that I went ahead and did the same thing. And you know, all I used was high temperature caliper paint. And it looks great, it works great. Totally fine, you know, and I just love the look of it. It looks so much better than with the silver. So that's one of those customizations that I did just to kind of make them my own. And I love the look of it. It just looks really sweet. Moving on, obviously I've got the panniers. I installed these 2 tool tubes. It's really hard to say, which I talked about in a previous video. Basically in one of them, I've got my tool roll, and then in the other one, I've got like my chain lube and my tire irons and things like that. So it's just a way to hold my tools so I don't have to fill up my pannier space, and it tucks in nicely right next to the seat, and it still gives me room for a full duffel on the back of the seat. This is just a little OBR Adventure Gear tail bag that I've got all my tire equipment in, so spare tubes, pump, rim strips, tire gauge, basically anything to do with replacing the tire is currently in here. So that's that. It's a really nice little bag. I like it. Moving around to this side, we've got, I got one of these little extenders on the side stand that does definitely make it better. This one here I put in just to make note that I did have to adjust the throttle position sensor slightly. There's articles online about it, but it really improved the idling of the bike. So there's a voltage that you can check on it, and basically I just had it tweaked so that the voltage was more appropriate, and now the bike idles much smoother. And it also now never stalls on cold start. Moving up to the front here, I put on a Royal Enfield additional oil cooler guard over the top of the factory guard. This is just the Royal Enfield brand black one. They're now available because of the new 2021 models. So I just picked that up off eBay and put it on. I think it was like 50 bucks or something. So there's that. And then coming up to the top, I put on some tank pads, both for the knees and for the tank bag. And then up on the handlebars, I put in a very simple SAE charger that's switchable, and it's got 2 ports on it. This is my phone mount, which is, it's pretty crappy and it will break your image stabilization in a camera, but some point I may take this off and put like a Garmin Zumo or whatever it is on it, but again, not worth the $300 for this year. I've got a RAM mount on here, which I've been putting my second GoPro rear facing, which I'll talk about in a second. I'm testing out my new GoPro remote as well as my dual camera setup. I picked up a pretty old GoPro, a Hero 3 off eBay, or off of Craigslist, but it was a full package with multiple batteries and the whole shebang for 50 bucks. So I couldn't pass up the deal. And what's really cool is I've managed to sync the remote to both cameras so that at least ostensibly I can kick them both off at the same time, and it does say they're both recording and they're both at 46 seconds, so I think it may be working, which is very cool for being able to sync up my video. And then I've got my GoPro remote right here, which is really convenient because it's paired to both cameras. So now if I hit that button, it fires off both cameras at the same time, which is really nice because then they're perfectly synced. So I think that's it. The only other thing I notice on the ground here is I just wanted to make note that this is the oil that I've been using in the bike. So I did the last oil change myself. Really simple, very easy to do. You order the filters and the gaskets online and the little copper washers, and it's super easy to drain and change your oil. And a lot of people use the 7100 modal, which is the fully synthetic, or they use 20W50 or something like that. And yes, I do live in a hot climate. However, this is the exact fuel or the exact oil that's specified in the owner's manual. So my opinion has always been follow the instructions when it comes to oil. If the owner's manual says 15W50 semi-synthetic, that's what I'm putting in the bike, and that's what this is. And the bike's running great with it, so that's what I'm going to continue to use. So one of the things that I bought factory, like I actually bought as an accessory when I bought the bike, in addition to the panniers, was the touring seat, because I had read online that if you plan to do any long distance travel on the bike, the firmer the seat, the better, which seemed very counterintuitive to me because I know when I go on long trips, I like a nice, soft, squishy seat. I tried really hard to like this seat and don't care for it. I actually greatly prefer the factory standard seat. So that's the seat that I've been riding with ever since like December, and I've loved it. Maybe that'll change, but every time I ride, even for more than an hour with this seat, my butt hurts. So that's a good enough reason for me to keep it in the garage in case I need it, in case I tear the other seat or something. But yeah, it's kind of funny that I paid like 80 bucks for that seat and ended up not really preferring it. This Saturday, I'm gonna spend several hours just getting all my packing together and everything ready for the trip. And one of the really good things about packing is that because of my background in long distance hiking and through hiking and camping and ultra light gear and things like that, I don't have to buy any gear. I have all of the lightest, lightweight backpacking gear and hiking and camping gear already. So I am gonna pack super lightweight. I've got a single wall tarp tent and I've got a very lightweight down sleeping bag, minimalistic cooking kit and everything. And since I'm only actually camping for about half the days that I'm gonna be on this trip, I'm set to go. I even have some dehydrated meals that from like my last trip that I can just use. So I really don't need to buy any camping or backpacking gear. I even have, you know, my mountaineering helmet and all my mountaineering gear and things like that I'll need to bring. So yeah, at this point, it really just comes down to how I'm gonna decide to arrange things both in my panniers and in my duffel. And yeah. So with that said, I'm gonna turn this off and I'm gonna start putting together my packing list. And if you guys have any questions at all about the gear that I have or where I picked it up or model numbers or brands or whatever, let me know. I will certainly pass on whatever information I can. But I do plan to take a lot of footage on the trip and kind of do a couple of different vlogs or whatever along the way. Especially once I get to Silverton and I'm there for the Hard Rock race, which I'm really excited about as well. And then yeah, just try to put together some fun content and share with you guys just the beauty of the mountains of Colorado. I mean, the San Juans are my favorite mountains in the country. It's hard to explain in words. You really got to see it. I'll sign off, and of course, take care and please be safe out there. See you guys in Colorado.